What's up? This is Uri for Guerrilla Poker. In the wake of my previous hand history review where I went over some of my biggest pots that saw showdown, I'm now going to go over some of my biggest pots that didn't see a showdown. I haven't reviewed these before, so we'll see how my memory is and if I like the way I played in them. So, first hand, Jack 10 suited under the gun, 5100. I raise, get 3-bet by cutoff, and call Jack 10 suited. Ace 10-5 two-tone, I check villain bet small, and I decide to check raise with my Jack 10 of hearts. Not what you might have expected, but ranges are kind of tight in this scenario, and having the 10 is actually a hand that's reasonable to bluff with, right? You block 10s in Ace 10. It doesn't really have that much showdown value against a 3-betting range in these positions. I'm often going to lose to kings, queens, jacks, or just get bluffed by hands that are worse than mine. It's not like a high-frequency play or anything, but I think okay. So yeah, check raise Jack 10 of hearts, one of the hands you should be bluffing with here. Turn the 10 of diamonds, gin turn, so keep barreling. And we get the 9 river. Here, I think there's only one way to go, you just shove for value. Villain folds. What did he have? A flush draw? Did he get convinced to fold his ace king, ace queen or whatever? I'm not sure. I think I might be able to play ace king the same way, kind of close. And yeah, this is not a high frequency play or anything, but definitely something you should do sometimes. And if I knew who villain was, maybe I had a specific reason to do this. Okay, so second hand, we are at 5100 again, BVB. I 3-bet with king 7 off. We get the 4-6-8 rainbow board. I see bet 1/3 pot, get check raised. Decide to take one off with king 7. We are 200 big blinds deep. Very normally played in my eyes, and up to this point the 3-bet is fine. Good board for the big blind, so I'm gonna see bet this a decent amount because I'm 3-betting all sorts of disconnected stuff, so I actually hit this pretty well. Then obviously continuing with this, we get the turn 7 of clubs. Villain checks. Thinking 7 is mostly gonna check back, probably a bit close. Then we get the river 9. Villain decides to bet 1/3 pot, and I wonder what I did here. Another hand didn't go to showdown. Did I fold? Call? Raise? Can't have called. Must have folded. Yeah, I think this fold is probably reasonable. Looking at this spot, this is not a spot that's easy to analyze theoretically because you get a very, very unique run out. So I don't know where is king 7 in my range. But what I can think about when I get to the river is, does king 7 beat bluffs? Yes. Once that's true, because his bet is really small, I get good pot odds, I want to most of the time be calling these kind of hands. And then issues become kind of read-based and leveling, sort of like, would the guy bluff for this small of a sizing? Would he check raise hands that don't connect to the 4-6-8 board at all? Because anything that's connected to this board in any way, right, like any 5, any 7, any 9, all of those hands improved and now beat me. So where is villain finding his bluffs? Did he check raise me with queen 10 of hearts? Those are the kind of things you want to think about, because generally king 7 is a very high frequency call if villain can find the bluffs, but it's not easy to find the bluffs. I end up folding, but an interesting spot to actually look at in a solver. What kind of bluffs are there on 864? What kind of bluffs should you be having BVB on this run out on the river? So let's actually pull out PioSOLVER and take a look at that. Not the most accurate ranges for 10k and L. These are a bit lower stakes, but they should do. So first of all, we see very high c-bet, like I expected. Not going to dive into too much of the strategies, just the river in this, like our specific hand. So yeah, of course, king 7 is always calling, 7 of clubs, when villain checks, almost always checking back. You need something stronger or weaker to kind of justify betting. So I think hand was played fairly trivially from my end. Get to the river. 9 of spades, and here you guys can see this is kind of the issue I was worried about. When you look at villain's range, it's not actually very easy to come up with hands that are worse than a pair of 7s. Like, we can see here, there's like these tiny leftovers of, like I said, queen jack of hearts, ace jack off, stuff like that, but do people really check raise these enough? I think a lot might not. And then when villain goes 1/3 on the river, you guys can see king 7 plays exactly the way I expected, where you have to call it most of the time, because it's, it's good to have a 7 and you're beating bluffs, and villain bets small. But It's not making money in theory, or not very much compared to the pot size, and it's kind of difficult to come up with bluffs, so kind of like my decision to fold here. I think it's probably a good fold. Okay, we'll go on to the next hand. Here I open 10-8 suited hijack, 5k and I'll get 3-bet, decide to call. We're 200 big blinds deep, and I flop huge, and again 200 deep. You guys can see I'm against a 67 VPIP player. He c-bets big. I'm like, okay, let's go for it. Why go for it? You have to remember when you're playing against a recreational player, it's not too much theory or balancing ranges, at least the way I approach things. It's more like which play is going to work the best against what I expect from him. And the cool thing here is, if I say he has kings and I have 10-8 suited, I'm the small favorite. And what might happen is that villain will, bet fold something like queens, jacks, 10s, 9s, 8s, aces at some point in the hand, which would obviously be good for me if I just get the money and I'm doing okay against these hands. Only really crushed if he has something like, ace, king of spades. And even then I have 39%, so it's very tough to be in bad shape with this big of a hand. And another thing that's going on here is that the cards that improve my hand, like a 5 or a 9, are really good cards for my range, and I think this is very easy to see. So let's say turn comes a 5, I'm not going to get action against kings. Or if turn comes a spade, I'm not going to get too much action against kings or aces. So in a way, calling to realize my equity is a bit too face up, so I'd rather just treat the hand as a semi-bluff, as a value hand. Put the money in before the bad card comes that lets him get away, because he can't get away now from kings. Then when the pot's big enough, might be good later. So yeah, he calls. Turn ace. I have no clue what to do. I don't think the other guy should really have ace, king, ace, queen, ace, jack type hands. I think those fold flop after such a big check raise, so I'd expect his range to be some flush draws. Some of them have an ace and have me dead, others whatever, and then a bunch of overpairs which might get pretty scared of the ace, and rightfully so, because I could have a nut flush draw. So yeah, just decide to ship. This can't be too bad, but the main thing is he now folding kings through 9s, or if he ever calls him, this is probably not good. And then if he is, this potentially gets a ton of folds. So I think really nice play. Get a fold. Next hand, a raise. I defend ace-4 offsuit, big blind versus cutoff. 9 deuce 3 two-tone board, and I decide to check call against a fairly big bet. This hand will sometimes check raise. Turn king of hearts, so hand keeps improving, villain pots. And here I think it's kind of a mix between check raising and check calling on the turn. I think they're both fine. Not really sure which one I like more. It looks like I decided to check call, river the 10, nice river, and villain keeps betting. And this is a really funny spot. Of course, I should probably check min raise and not check shove, but it's pretty tough to find a bluff in my shoes. And this is one of the spots where kind of deception and bet sizing go together, because imagine villain here is betting 75% pot. Now just imagine that with the nuts he would go pot or bigger with a nut flush, and this is a sizing reserved more for second or third nut flush. If that's true, check raise bluffing here probably becomes pretty good, because who in their right mind would bet call those hands? So this is one of those spots where if people aren't careful with their bet size, and I'm very perceptive, I could potentially just check raise bluff his sizing all day, all night, and just print money. But you need very good reads, and high stakes you don't get many people doing that. Lower stakes you definitely do. This is one of the things I talk about in the red line course in the deception chapter and the bet sizing chapter, where you're supposed to have these multiple bet sizes and protect all of them with traps. But in practice, a lot of people don't do that, and that kind of opens up opportunities if you're observant. So this is definitely something to take a note of, and a spot to think about, where maybe you should check raise bluffs and nobody will ever call, and they'll never have the nuts because they sized this way. I don't think that would be too out of the question. So here, UTG limps, small blind ISOs. I decide to call king 10 suited, and we get king 4-3. Third pot, always calls, queen of hearts. Now we get a big bet, of course gonna call king 10 of hearts. You get a fold, get the ace of diamonds. I wonder what happened on the river. I mean, one of us folded, probably he shoved. And yeah, I think when he shoves here, it's a bit of a difficult spot for villain to have bluffs. I would guess the main bluff would be something like 5-6 suited. It could isolate and then barrel off here. This is another one of those spots, similar to the King 7 spot, where in theory my hand should probably be calling sometimes. But in practice is a bit tougher, and I think having the 10 of hearts might be a bit bad, because maybe 10-9 of hearts, bluffing hand for villain. But it's mostly 5-6 suited. If it's mostly 5-6 suited, we have to think, even in terms of combos, right? This is a spot where a GTO player might be, oh, let's call this amount of my range. But really, I think you can go deeper than that in these multi-way spots. I'll give you guys an example of how you would analyze this with very simple tools. Because everyone wings it in multi-way pots. No one knows what they're doing. So we take this range for villain. This is the bluffing range, 5-6 suited. Now we want a value range that makes sense for the entire line. So we isolated bet flop small, barrel turn big. I think Jack 10 suited makes sense. Queens make sense. Aces make sense. I don't think kings necessarily make sense. King Queen, I don't know, maybe a bit overplay for King Queen. Ace King, sure, could see Ace King doing this. Let's put in 6-7 of hearts and 5-7 of hearts. Oh, I don't know if these hands would play like this, but presumably run out looks good enough for him to bluff those. And could have 3s and 4s sometimes. They wouldn't always ISO, so let's have just one of these. Of course, maybe the guy is just barreling through with 4 or 5. I don't know. But let's assume more normal play style. Now we'll put in my hand King 10 of hearts. And we see against this range, 25% equity to call this bet. Definitely need more than that. I need roughly 35. So it's doable if we play around with this range, but think it's a bit tough. And here's the spot where blockers come into play, because if I had King 8 of hearts, I'd have 24 rather than 25. So this is a spot where solvers tell you, oh, but blockers, you have the good blockers, maybe you should call. But or for example, if I had 5s, so like really bad blockers, you drop to 14, even though you're still beating all the bluffs. But yeah, I think it's just a spot that's kind of tough to bluff, and due to multi-way on the run out, it's probably just good to fold. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to the channel, and check out our website where we have a course about how to improve your red line, which is what we're seeing here, right? Big non-showdown pots, as well as GTO ranges and a bunch of other cool stuff coming up soon. So hope to see you guys there, and I'll see you soon.